Hello beautiful friends, welcome to my channel. I'm really glad you're here. Today's video will explore how breaking down the performance of gender into smaller, more easily manageable pieces can help transform our understanding of self and of gender, and can create space for further exploration and less self-judgment. I believe the things that I have learned in this area are things which most anyone can apply to their own life to find a more grounded sense of their own gender expression, as well as of the performative nature of gender. So at the end of this video, I'll leave you with 3 questions for personal contemplation that can help better connect today's video to your own life. So I have talked at length in these videos about the absurdity of sorting the world into 2 categories, any 2 categories. Binary ways of thinking are easy for our brains and somewhat crucial for our survival, but are exceptionally insufficient at appreciating diversity or advancing nuanced understanding. The ability to move past reductive binaries can propel us towards more accurate, reasoned, and balanced understandings of things, but can also advance curiosity, empathy, and compassion, which are all things we're in desperate need of. More simply, allowing everyone to self-disclose what kinds of expression or performance they might choose is far less violent than forcing people to choose between the categories of man and woman. Unfortunately, this somewhat rosy and utopic vision of the world is powerful, but currently unrealistic. And if the survival of trans and gender non-conforming people depends on the total obliteration of the gender binary, or the complete toppling of the patriarchy, or whatever, then we're kinda doomed. In the long term, and as a collective, I believe that our survival does depend on this. For as long as trans women of color continue to be slaughtered without consequence, and gender-questioning teenagers or closeted adults continue to take their own lives, then we still have serious work to do. But today's video is more about the short term. How do we survive in the space between rigid gender binaryism and our march towards its abolition? Well, that's a massive question, one which I have no definitive answers for, because we will have to continue to explore and learn and renegotiate as we go. But when something seems too big to handle, it's a solid time to consider breaking it down. As my parent used to say growing up, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So we can't just snap our fingers and invite the whole planet to recognize that there are as many different gender performances as there are people alive on the planet. But we have to find ways of forging space for ourselves in the meantime, within the coherence everyone else seems to see in a binary gender system. And one of the biggest revelations I have had over the last 4 years is that being forced to negotiate with a system you don't believe in requires constant reminding and regrounding of its fallacy, which requires creative manipulation of its pieces. More simply, since a binary conception of gender will probably always feel at least slightly dysphoric for me, but I am unlikely to be able to get strangers or acquaintances to understand this, the best I can do is negotiate with the parts of gender binaryism rather than its whole. To break the performance of gender into as many pieces as possible, consider each one, and decide which script, if either, feels better. In other words, there is tremendously little of public life that remains ungendered, but the ideas of man or woman are not actually one idea, but a bunch of smaller ideas that are constantly evolving. For instance, in the 40s, razor companies wanted to broaden their market, to start selling razors to women as well as men, so they started to insist that a woman with shaved legs was sexier than a woman with hair. So now, shaved legs is a trait that is generally feminine, except in rare cases of swimmers or runners. And every single model in a bikini ad or Victoria's Secret runway will sport shaved legs, even though there's nothing about shaving one's legs that is inherently gendered, and women haven't even been doing it for 100 years. Every piece of our scripts of gender operate in this same way. Everything that is considered masculine or feminine has a genealogy, a historical reason that it is categorized in that way. And spoiler alert, a lot of them have to do with capitalism and or white supremacist standards regarding sex appeal. But we can undo these scripts by breaking them apart into their smaller pieces. Femininity is not a singular thing, but a combination of a posture, an intonation, an emotional expression, a manner of dress, which could also be sorted into shoes, garments, hairstyles, makeup, etc. Ironically, when I first came out, I had a better understanding of this, and a lot more naive optimism that if I formed my gender performance with only those things which remained gender neutral, that I would be able to step outside the binary with ease. But the conflation of sex and gender, along with the ways in which my body was already assumed male in most spaces, forced me to engage with femininity in order to hold space for myself. Turns out, I really enjoy femininity for the most part, and I wish I would have been brave enough to start there sooner. Even so, because my femininity was always suspect, I often found myself leaning farther into a totally feminine script, rather than reminding myself that I had an unbounded range of expressive choices at my disposal. In next week's video, I plan to talk more about the mechanics of this, and about incorporating a spirit of play into our understanding of ourselves and our genders. But to wrap up today's video, I think a couple reminders and kind words will suffice. The negotiation of narrow scripts is hard work. It tests your patience, your courage, your sanity. Brave is now something of a trigger word for many trans folks because we are not seeking bravery but survival, and we should not be siloed off as somehow inconceivably different from the rest of the populace for how we express ourselves. But to push the boundaries of the boxes you are placed in does require bravery, so be kind to yourself as you explore. Insofar as it is within your power, maintain a posture of self-grace rather than self-judgment. These things are hard, and they take work and time. And I have yet to meet a trans or gender non-conforming person who has never received any harassment or marginalization as a cost of their expression. Additionally, become more comfy with fluidity. Just because something feels good one day doesn't mean it has to feel good the next. Changing yourself or your expression repeatedly does not make you less trans or confused or anything like that. It just means that you are a complex, intricate, and evolving person. And no one would interrogate your love for pizza just because you choose to have sushi sometimes or aren't always in the mood for pizza. The stakes of binary gender are set astronomically high, life or death at times, but we don't have to carry this in our bodies in every moment. You are valid, and your path to self-discovery is valid. Questions are good, not something to be ashamed of, and in time, following your questions and curiosity will make things more spacious and probably more comfy. But as promised, I'll leave you with 3 questions for personal reflection that you can use to help connect today's video to your own life. First, consider some part of your gender performance that doesn't always feel so great. How might this performance change if you opted to exchange it for something different, perhaps something from the opposite script? Second, what is some area in which you have observed gender fluidity in your own life? That is, what is something about your expression or gender that looks different now from how it did in the past? Last, how can understanding masculine and feminine as mosaics rather than monoliths change the power you grant them in your life? How can understanding them in this way work to diminish them even if it can't undo them? If you're feeling brave and vulnerable enough to share your responses to today's questions, I would love to hear from you in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe. Your support means a great deal to me as I want to provide reflections which speak to you. And thank you for watching. I wish you peace and perspective. I love you all as I love myself, as we are part of the same world. And I look forward to talking with you again soon.